Good evening. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. We're excited tonight. This is our first board meeting of February. We celebrate Black History Month this month, and we're excited about that. Thank you guys for being here and caring about your community. Um, I'm going to go ahead and officially call the meeting to order tonight. The thought for today: learning is a treasure that will follow its owner everywhere, and that's a Chinese proverb. We have our invocation tonight by Pastor, Bishop Tim Smith. And sir, if you would please come up, uh, and Sheriff, if you would come up with him as well. We got sad news to report that um, I let the sheriff explain on tonight. If you would, sir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening to all of you. It is with sadness that we announce the death of one of our own, BJ Kennedy. BJ spent more than 10 years with us. BJ had an extensive law enforcement career, not only law enforcement career, but he's going to be best known as one of the greatest track coaches throughout the nation. He traveled all over, had his kids as well as his own kids and kids that he claimed of his own in the community to win all kind of national track awards. So with that said, BJ's visitation will be Thursday from the hour of 12 to 8 at Young's Funeral Home here at the intersection of Clark and West Street. And his services will be held on Friday at 11 o'clock at Springfield Baptist Church in Conyers. Also, I forgot to say that the family will be accepting visitation and guests between the hour of 6 and 8 o'clock at the Young Levitt Funeral Home. So we ask that you would continue to keep us, most importantly, BJ's family in prayer. Again, it's tough. He was one of our own, but we realized that he had a greater mission to carry out. And now he's not only enforcing the law in heaven, but he's also having major track stars up there with him. And with that said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your time for this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Officer Kennedy and his family will be in our prayers. I know him. I attend the same church that he attends, so he's a great person. Um, Tonight we do have Bishop Tim Smith of the Greater Love Fellowship Tabernacle. He's a close friend of mine. I'm excited to have him here tonight to pray for our communities. Sir, if you would please tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your ministry, and you would pray for our community, and please pray for our coach family.
Yes, sir. Honorable Commissioner, we thank you so much tonight. I am Pastor Tim Smith, Greater Love Church. I serve as the presiding bishop of Greater Love Church, as well as Gathering of the Saints International Fellowship and Gathering of the Saints International Theological Seminary. We've been serving for nearly 2 decades, and we do have a dual profession, serving also with the Sheriff's Office, our Honorable Sheriff, Ezel Brown, and the service that we do over there is in the area of champs and community outreach. So we are excited about our works there.
Thank you, sir. If you would pray for me.
As we would prepare for invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you tonight for your guidance and your protection, your peace that you're giving to us on tonight. Certainly we pray, God, for this body of people who have gathered here tonight, these commissioners who are prepared to lead us and to guide us. We pray, Father, that you would continue to provide leadership to them, God, that they may lead this county, this government in the direction that you have already established for them. We pray for their families, husbands and wives. We certainly thank you for their children, God, and Father, giving them the ability to come and to lead this county government and to serve in the capacity that they're serving. We thank you, Father, for all leadership throughout this county, our sheriff and those of them that are represented tonight. We certainly pray your protection and peace upon them, as well as your blessings. Tonight, God, we pray for this community as a whole. Lord, that you would continue to guide us as we would come in oneness with you. Tonight, we pray for the Kennedy family. We just ask your sincere blessings upon them, granting them understanding, Father, as you're granting peace, the ability to continue on in life, even without the presence of Mr. Kennedy. It's our prayer, God, that you would just consume us with your love and your presence, your guidance, God, your grace and your mercy. For you have established many wonderful things for us to do here. God, we have vowed to do those things. So with your help, God, we just ask again for your leadership, your guidance, sweet Holy Spirit to guide us and to command us. We thank you and we honor you on this great night again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, we want to first thank you for all that you do in the community. Also with your ministry and what you do for us over at the Sheriff Department. I got a token tonight that I want to give to you of appreciation and let you know how much we appreciate you. We're going to ask our sheriff tonight if you would lead us in our pledge.
Will you stand, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Commissioners, I have a few changes on the agenda tonight. The first change, we want to remove 9A from the consent agenda and make that 12A. Also, another addition to the agenda tonight, we want to make 12B, discussion and consideration of a Newton County Facilities Authority, creating one. The creation of a Newton County Facilities Authority, a public facility. Any questions? Thank you. I seek a motion that we approve the agenda with changes. It's been motioned by Commissioner Mason and seconded by Commissioner Henderson. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments. This opportunity that we allow citizens to come up to make comments about agenda topics only. Agenda topics only. You have 3 minutes to do so. You may come at this time. Please state your name and your address for the record, please. Agenda topics only. Agenda topics only.
Ricky Mott, 65 Mystic Lane, Social Circle, Georgia. I noticed y'all have a discussion about the R.L. Cousins Center, about purchasing it. I thought we had covered that 2 or 3 times before already. The county, the school system sold it to Rob Fowler for $10,000 because the building wasn't fit to be used. And then the county paid to have all the asbestos removed, and then Rob rented it all these years and rented it back to the county. And then every few years they come back and want the county to buy it back from them. I don't know what they're asking or who's doing the asking, but how many times are we going to give it away and buy it back? The taxpayers paid for it. School system gave it away. We paid to have the asbestos removed. And now we're talking about buying it back again. And 911 moved out of it, said it wasn't fit to be in. The crime rate, the problems, the mold, the leaking. Is the building even sprinkled? How many millions of dollars would it cost to bring it back up to the Newton County Code if we did buy it? Yes, the land is worth something, but, y'all need to think long and hard, before you pay more than $10,000 for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name, your address for the record, please.
Good evening, Archie Shepherd, 9169 Village Drive, Covington, Georgia. In reference to R.L. Cousins School, I don't know, but if I'm not mistaken, the ball field, the gym, and all that property over there is tied in together. So if you let it go, the gym is gonna go, the recreation, the field is all on one note. So you got to look at that when you think about letting this property go. That is one, and then on top of that, R.L. Cousin is a historical building for us here in Newton County. We supported 100% of trying to get this building built back or bought. So it makes sense to try to save this property, because if we go into foreclosure, gonna be what they want to do is build projects down there. They want to build, that's what they want to do down there. So I hope that the commissioner will sincerely look at this and think about this when you make a decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you. Next on the agenda is the chairman's report. Tonight, I'm excited to have a few guests in the house tonight. We want to honor and recognize those that won awards on MLK Day. We're excited tonight. We have about 5 here tonight with us. So excited that these people have did so much great work in this community, and they have been recognized for it. And tonight, the Board of Commissioners want to recognize them as well. First tonight, we have the Young Dreamers Awards. This young man goes to Newton County Career Academy. His name is Keegan Hill. Mr. Keegan Hill, if you will, please come up, sir. I apologize, Miss Keegan, I apologize. She is a great person. She just said she accept my apology, and I did apologize to her again. We're so excited about your future and the things that you're going to do. You bringing so much excitement to Newton County, and we hear so many great things about you with the Creed Academy. And again, I apologize for messing that up, but keep doing good work. Thank you so much. Thank you. Also, we had an MLK Scholar Award. This young man, Mr. Chris EGK, is that right? He's not here tonight. Well, that's okay. He's not here tonight, but he got a scholarship over at Emory College, and we're excited about that. And we will make sure that he get his award. Y'all clap for him, please. Thank you. We have another Young Dreamer Award. This award goes to Mr. James Wilson Jr. Sir, are you here tonight? There you go. Yeah. This young man came up, and when he received his award, he spoke so eloquently, and I'm so excited about his future and the things that that he's going to do in the future, sir. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for all your hard work as well. This young man, I think this young man, this is somebody that everybody knows. He won the Trailblazers Award. He, I think when he walks, everybody stand up and give him attention. This man is Judge Horace Johnson. Sir, if you would please come up. Yeah. Sir, thank you so much for all that you have done in this community, and I know all that you will continue to do. It's a pleasure just to be in your presence for the things that you have accomplished here. So we're greatly honored tonight to be able to give you this certificate of appreciation.
You call me young. I need to say that. Thank you.
This award here goes to somebody who have a very special place in my heart, who's been a friend and a mentor and did a lot of great things for me, not only me, but so many young people that came through Newton County. The Newton County Legacy Award goes to Mr. Almond Turner. I want to present this to his family tonight. Guys, if you would, please come up. Words cannot express the thanks and the love that I think this community have for your father and then your family. So we greatly appreciate you guys and doing what you do. You guys have been great, and we're proud of you. And I know y'all proud of your dad. This community loves your father, and we just want to say that we thank you. Again, we're going to be talking to this board about seeing what we can do in the future to make sure we recognize him in a greater way. But I greatly appreciate you, and I know this community appreciates your dad. I say the last, cause this young man here, he come with slides, and he got a few pictures that he want us to he got a few pictures that he want us to look at tonight. This young man, he does so much in the community. He makes sure that he bring what he does. He bring a crowd of people with him when he do what he do. He makes sure that this community stay clean. He clean up graveyards and things like that. And I am so proud to be able to call him my friend, Mr. Frederick Johnson, sir. If you would please come on up. I've been knowing this young man for a long time. I grew up I grew up attending his church, and we grew old together, and so he called me. I call him Little Fat Deacon, and he called me
Little Fat Preacher.
So we've been doing that for probably close to 20 years, and that's what we do when we see each other. He does so much good work in this community. He has some slides. He lead our MLK cleanup. I'm gonna give him an opportunity to say a few words about the cleanup that we did this year. And sir, but I greatly appreciate what you do, and thank you so much for all that you do. Come on, look back. Thank you so much. Now, when you give a deacon a microphone, it's like giving a preacher the microphone. So I got to put him on a time limit because I know he'll be up here for 2 hours. See, you see, checking his watch. So if you would take just a few moments and tell us about the cleanup, sir, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Bain. I just want to say we had a productive cleanup this time. You can see that before you couldn't even see the fence. You see at the after. I made sure that I took a picture this afternoon to make sure that we would get this on. I think you got a couple more, Brian. And we only had about 15 people this time to help us out. Some had already left, but anyway, it was cold out there that morning, and we got a little something done. Let's put it that way. But I've already gone back twice, last Monday and also this past Monday, which was yesterday, to do some more work on it, and I still got about another day to do that. And I do want to apologize to the young man and the young lady in the back there that out at what is it? Bear Creek Reserve. I had promised them we was going to do that cemetery also, but they informed me tonight that they've already did it. And this is the young people that I had told you at one time that they had spent their own monies to have a fence put around. Like, what was it, $3,000 or so dollars? But anyway, we would like for the county, to help reimburse them back, if we would. But we are gonna do some more work this year, and well, hopefully this month, and have earmarked 2 more cemeteries, and hopefully Miss Laura Bertram will be able to get me some volunteers this time and everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations, guys. Thank you so much, guys, for all that you do. We greatly appreciate all that you do. Next on the agenda is the county manager report. Mr. Kirby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've asked our county attorney to give you to update you and to give you kind of a refresher course on open meetings and open records and those things. But before I turn it over to Ms. Martin, I just would like to put a plug in for the Newton County Government 101. There are some flyers down here on the table. I think there's still some left. This is a series of 6 classes that we'll be conducting at Turner Lake Park over there in the community room. And they're going to be on over 6 different dates. This is all on our website, but February 6th, which is coming up here just in a couple of days. On February 6th, we'll have the sheriff's office, the probate judge, clerk of court, the tax commissioner, and the coroner will be there. And what each of those folks will do will give you a short presentation on what they do and what their duties and responsibilities are and the services they provide to the county. And then there'll be a period of time at the end where the public can ask questions. And we'd like to just invite everybody. There's no sign up or any prerequisites that you have to have. This is an opportunity for you just to learn a little bit more about what we do and the services that the county government provides, as well as an opportunity for you to meet the individuals who provide those services and some of the department heads who are in charge of the departments providing those services. So again, our first one is February 6th. Then we have March 5th, April 2nd, May 7th, June 4th, and July 2nd. And each one of those will have different departments or different individuals from the county speaking to you and also answering your questions. So we'd like to see as many people there as would like to come, and we hope that and think it'll be very informational and instructional for you. So thank you very much.
Thank
and
you,
now I'll
sir.
turn it over to Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Kerr and commissioners. We have a little bit of a technical difficulty, so I'm going to be working off slides that Molly, who, by the way, had her baby a couple hours ago. So she taught this up at UGA for Carl Vincent. So there's many, many slides. I'm going to try with this one just to kind of keep moving. So if we can have questions at the end, that would be very helpful. So the reason for the act was enacted in the public interest to protect the public, both individuals and the public generally, from closed-door politics. That is the spirit of both the Open Meetings Act and the Open Records Act. So, what is an open meeting? Meeting means, let's get down just to the verbiage itself, the gathering of a quorum of the members of the governing body of an agency at which any official business, policy, or public matter is formulated. What I want you to do specifically is look there. If you learn nothing else about what an open meeting is, this has to be your purpose. So what is a meeting? What is a meeting? Not a meeting. A meeting shall not include the
Can I get you to start the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm usually too loud. So meetings shall not include the gathering of a quorum of the members of a governing body or committee for the purpose of making inspections of physical facilities or property under the jurisdiction of such agency. It is perfectly appropriate that you can go and view different agencies, facilities together. The gathering of a quorum of the members of a governing body to the purpose of attending a statewide or a regional meeting, that also all of you can go. I think of the big ACCG spring meeting for that. And that's, I'm pulling out that language there for you that you can make inspections of physical facilities, attend meetings. Continuing on of what is not a meeting, the gathering of a quorum of the members of a governing board or committee for the purposes of meeting with officials of the legislative or executive branches of the state or federal government. Additionally, the gathering of a quorum of the members of a governing body of an agency for the purpose of traveling to a meeting, that is also not a meeting. The gathering of a quorum of the members of a governing body of an agency at a social or ceremonial or civic event is also not a meeting. We get many questions. Well, can we all go to the Gold Dome and work with our local delegation? The answer is yes. You can absolutely go to work with your legislative officials in a group. Okay. So some exclusions from the definition of the term meeting shall not apply if it's shown that the primary purpose is to subvert the act. So understand that the act was put in place for transparency purposes. If you defy the act, you've went against the whole purpose of both of the acts. Okay. So talking about meetings, who must be granted access to meetings? The public at all times, any radio or television media, and each governing body may adopt reasonable rules for attendance of the public at its meetings. We do have our own rules of procedure, and we use Robert's rules when our own rules of procedure don't cover an issue. This is actually a case you all may be familiar with. This is a citizen journalist that has spoken out quite a bit up in northern Georgia. And she was removed from a meeting in a city, and it ended up that this case went all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court. And it was about that she had the right as a citizen and as a social media journalist to be in the meeting and tape record. Public votes. We don't vote via email. We don't vote in any improper situation. So as except as otherwise provided by law, all meetings shall be open to the public. All votes at any meeting shall be taken in public after due notice of the meeting and compliance with the posting and agenda requirements of this chapter. So notice, we do have to put out notice for our meetings, our regular meetings versus other types of meetings. For regular meetings, the agency does, and that's us, prescribe the time, place, and dates for regular meetings of the agency. Now, this is an example of what a public notice looks like. Okay, again, getting back to notice requirements for regular versus called meetings. Regular meetings are subject to the following notice requirements. Each agency shall prescribe the time, place, and dates of their regular meetings of the agency. This information shall be available, and a notice containing such information shall be posted at least 1 week in advance and maintained in a conspicuous place available to the public at the regular place of an agency. Here in the county, we would go to see Miss Jackie most likely. So special meetings. When we have a special meeting, we need only provide written or oral notice at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting to the legal organ in which notices of sheriff's sales are published. Curious that the notification requirements for special meetings require no posting in a conspicuous location at the meeting site or on the website. A phone call to the legal organ is significant. So we put our notices out, we make the public aware. There's statutory requirements, as we've now seen, for our notifications. If we have less than 24 hours advance notice, there must be reasonable notice. The notice must be reasonable under the circumstances to include notice to the county legal organ or its equivalent, recording in the minutes the need for such an emergency meeting, and 3, providing telephonic, fax, or email notification to other media outlets that have a place of business in the county. Agendas, as we saw earlier on, there's some, I'll show you some examples, but they do have to be posted at the meeting site and advance the meeting as reasonably possible. It must be made available to the public prior to the meeting and should include all items expected to come before the agency. Now, I would like to stop here for a moment. I'd had a question earlier about consent agenda items, and we usually have a consent agenda like we have tonight. And consent agendas are used because these meetings are so very busy. If you have an issue that is a very standard business practice, some resolutions will go on there, especially resolutions of support, which we do for our local delegation. But the consent agenda cannot be used to subvert the Open Meetings Act either. Sticking it on a consent agenda to hide it is going to cause someone to go to the Attorney General and say, I had no idea. I didn't hear the details of this, and those are my tax dollars. Okay, failure to include on the agenda an item which becomes necessary. As you all know, we have done this in our own meetings where we indicate that it has become necessary during the course and scope of our meeting to amend the agenda. We make sure that we get that on the record. The agenda is then amended due to necessity. This is an example agenda. Not very exciting stuff, but it gives you an idea of what you'll see on a typical one. Miss Jackie is always the very next day on these, but the meeting summaries do have to be done within 2 business days. Our minutes have to be promptly recorded and open to the public for inspection once approved as official, but no later than after the next regular meeting. Regular minutes of a meeting subject to the chapter shall be promptly recorded. This is your statutory authority. Recording of votes. The names of each person voting and how they voted shall be recorded. It is presumed that each action was approved by each person in attendance unless the minutes reflect the name of the person voting against the proposition. So teleconference meetings, we'll quickly go through this. If we have someone who's out of town, for example, we will allow them to telephone in, but generally local governments have very, very few ways to hold a teleconference and to have a meeting. This is our statutory guidance on teleconference meetings. Pull out this language here for you. On any other occasion of the meeting of an agency or committee thereof, and so long as a quorum is present in person, a member may participate by teleconference if necessary due to reasons of health or absence from the jurisdiction, so long as the other requirements of this chapter are met, absent emergency conditions or the written opinion of a physician or other health professionals that the reason of health prevents a member's presence. No member shall participate by teleconference more than twice in 1 calendar year. Work session versus executive session. One's open, one is closed. I do want to emphasize here executive session. This is a time where we discuss items, especially attorney-client privileged items, and we discuss purchasing of lands, authority or amount of money we can use to purchase lands, settlement for cases, lots of things that need to be kept within that small sphere. That is why citizens are not allowed to attend the executive session. Okay, so I think this one we can go through pretty quickly, but what has to happen to close a meeting? We have to have a majority vote. The specific reasons will be entered in the minutes, and the minutes must show who was present and the names of those voting for closure. The chairperson shall execute an affidavit on that subject matter. Minutes of executive session meetings are kept. They are kept under lock and key, but those minutes do exist, and our clerk takes those for us during executive session. Again, we are already working on this, but as you know, we do record our executive session minutes. This is a quick rundown of the type of things that may be discussed in an executive session: settlement, negotiations to purchase property, ordering of an appraisal that would be related to acquisition of property or sale of property, enter into a contract to purchase, dispose, or lease property, subject to approval in a subsequent public vote. Also, you can enter into an option to purchase, dispose of, or lease real estate subject to approval and subsequent public vote.
Megan, can you take
Yes.
a quick question right quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question I have that you just went over is about executive session minutes.
Mhm.
I was told that in executive session minutes, you never have the minutes, you just have who may have been there. And then this,
Well, I can say that when I do them for Miss Jackie, I will put on there the subject, discussion consideration of acquisition of ABC property. You want your executive session minutes to be detailed enough that if someone comes back to review, meaning one of y'all, that you've done things, that you'll be able to see what was discussed. But yes, we do take those minutes, and it depends upon the person taking them. I've seen some clerks who will have like 6 or 7 pages. We don't do that, thankfully. It's very, very simple, as far as how our minutes are done.
absolutely. So what you're telling me is that any executive minutes, that there's gonna be more in it than just,
Yeah, there wouldn't just say Commissioner Cowan, Commissioner Henderson, Commissioner Schultz, Chairman Baines, Clerk Smith. It needs to have more than that. You're welcome. So these are some of the items that we are allowed to discuss in executive session. Again, due to some technical difficulties, we've got a lot more slides than I thought, so we're going to keep on grooving along. The affidavit you heard me speak of earlier, the chairman does sign an affidavit saying that matters discussed in our executive session in a closed meeting were within the exceptions. Situations to watch when we're talking about open meetings: seminars, work sessions, and retreats. Can you all go and be there together? Yes. Can you all go and discuss county business and make decisions about the county? No. Think about pre-meeting meetings and breaks during regular meetings as well, that you're not violating the Open Meetings Act. We get this question pretty frequently: can an agency meet in subquorums on the same or similar subject without offending the act? This would be where someone meets with two of you, one of you. That's the question there. While the act contains no express prohibition on having back-to-back subquorum meetings on the same subject matter, the Attorney General has consistently taken a clear position on the issue for over a decade. It is inappropriate for an agency governed by the Open Meetings Act to meet in groups of less than a quorum for the express purpose of avoiding their obligations under the Open Meetings Act. So if the reason that you're meeting with a person is to go around the Open Meetings Act, we have a problem. This is an example of what would come from the Attorney General if there's been a complaint made. And then you, in turn, respond. And then your Department of Law with the AG's office is going to tell you their decision. How is the act enforced? The Attorney General may bring civil and criminal actions to enforce the Open Meetings Act. Any person, firm, corporation, or other entity may bring an action. Superior courts are authorized to issue injunctions, and attorney's fees are available to those who do bring complaints. I also get a lot of questions about, well, what happens if one of my commissioners happens to violate the act? Well, if it was knowingly and willfully participating in a meeting violation of the Open Meetings Act as a misdemeanor, that's punishable by a fine up to $1,000. Falsifying the affidavit concerning a closed meeting as a felony is punishable by 5 years in prison. Additional consequences: additional civil or criminal violations within a 12-month period can result in penalties up to $2,500. Good faith is a defense against those criminal penalties. How would we defend a lawsuit in that regard? We would show substantial compliance with the act, that the advice of counsel was sought, non-participation in the violation, or that it was harmless or de minimis. So that gets us to the end of the open meeting section. As Lloyd indicated, we're going to do these over several sessions. So we will be talking about open records at our next session. Any questions from the board about the Open Meetings Act?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Kerr?
No, sir, that's fine.
Thank you so much. Next on the agenda is old business. Discussion about approval to build a fire station. Mr. Kerr?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since our last meeting, we have taken a further look, a little closer look, and had a little more time to take a look at the estimates that we had for the building of the new station. And I've given you some updated information, and that some of the information is still the same, but there is some updated costs in the pumper equipment list. And so you'll see there's a little bit of a different total than what we initially looked at. We initially estimated around this $80,000 mark, when in actuality, we did cost out each of the options that we would need on there, and it would be more in the line of $136,000. But overall, the cost to build the station, again, approximate cost, remain pretty close to the same, which would be close to $3 million. So, and then the apparatus would be $738. Additional equipment would be the $136. And then, of course, there's the other costs that are related to operation and maintenance of the station, and that is the costs for training and for bringing on the needed personnel, the 12 additional personnel that would be needed. But that could actually be done at a later date, those costs for personnel, and they would not come as part of the construction of the station. But we wanted to give you all of that information so that you did have all of that information before you. What I am seeking tonight from the board is a decision on whether or not to move ahead with this project to find a location and build the fire station. We have identified several sites and have given those parcels numbers over to Gerard and Davis to begin looking at those for us, to contact the property owners. And we have picked those sites based on covering within 5 road miles the largest number of properties and the highest density of people. So with that, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. Chief Connor is also here tonight. If you have any further questions about the station, Jeff Prine, who is our project manager for Station 8, is also here if you have any questions too about the estimates that we have given you for those for the construction of that station.
Lloyd, can you share the sites with us, please?
Pardon me?
Can you share where the sites are located at?
There are sites along County Road 213, Big Woods Road, Starsville Road, Elks Club Road, Dixie Road, and I know I'm leaving one out. There was one I was just made aware of, but it's close to that area. Poplar Road, Poplar Hill Road. Yes, thank you. We are looking at all of those sites that are in those areas.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Lord, help me understand, is that by, if the county, the commissioners, county decide to build a fire station in one of those areas, so that means that the ISO ratings of the people whose homes are insured, that means that it goes down. Maybe.
It should, yes. There will be some people who are not going to be covered within that 5 road mile area. But if we did place the station at any of those areas that I mentioned, and with the construction of Station 8, we're going to have about 95% of the people in the county covered. But in truth, there will be some properties that will be outside of that 5 mile road mile, now not a radius, but a road mile, and also who are not currently served with water, a public water, or have hydrants or a water supply nearby, a lake or a river or something.
So I think when the citizens showed up, their chief concern was that they felt that if the fire station was put in one of those specific areas, that would help the ISO ratings. And then there was also an element of safety too, you know, maybe by a fire station and the services being a little bit closer to them. And if I'm wrong, somebody correct me.
No, that's absolutely, yes, sir.
Commissioner Schultz. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have 2 questions, and one is to piggyback off of what Commissioner Henderson asked. So I understand the 5 road miles, but what emphasis is placed on water in terms of that ISO rating? Because I know that I have constituents in my district that are close to fire stations, and yet they don't have water, and so the ISO ratings are still high.
It's actually a mixture of the criteria, and I can call the chief up here for just a minute, maybe to talk with you to see if to add anything. But it's not just the 5 road miles; it's the existence of a water supply and the existence of fire hydrants. There are some communities out there that have a water supply, but they've got nowhere for a fire engine to hook in to pump the water. So it's a combination of all of those things. There are people who within 5 road miles of a station, but they have well water, and that which typically would not. There's no way to hook up a fire truck to it, so their ratings would be higher, even though they're within 5 miles of a station. Chief, I don't know if you can expound a little bit on that.
Actually, ISO grades us in 4 main areas. One of them is the department, one is water supply, one is communications, and one is training. Now, we do have, and your neighborhood is one of them, we've discussed it. You're well within 5 road miles of Station 9 on Mount Zion Road, but your neighborhood is on a community well. So there's no municipal water source, because most time when ISO comes out, we have to show that we can deliver 250 gallons a minute for 2 hours. So if we don't have municipal water, sometimes it's hard for us to do. Now, we are trying to get other ways to meet that, and this board opted to buy us a tender. And we're working, because if we can show that we can shuttle water, and we have to locate these static sources, i.e. lakes, ponds, rivers, that meet the criteria they set. 50-year drought studies that the water should be there. But if we show that we can manually move enough water to supply a needed fire flow of 250 gallons a minute for 2 hours, they will figure that into these calculations and give us points, so that somebody that, because the water authority runs fire mains, the county has nothing to do with it. But the county, we're looking at trying to find alternative ways to meet these needed fire flows that the ISO sets. And this board's taken a positive step by buying that new tender we have now. I'm not sure if we can do it with one, but we're going to start doing some training and some analysis. There's a lot of work we got to do. We've got to locate these, and they have to be dictated on a map and sent to ISO so that they know where these water sources are. We have to have geological studies that, yes, they fall within the 50-year flood or drought, 50-year drought plain. But we are taking proactive steps to get around issues that are out of our control.
Because I know, with the new station in North Newton, we're going to have the same problem, where we have people that are within those 5 road miles that have well water that don't have hydrants. And so I think it's really important that this board, yes, we need to provide these fire stations, but we also need to look at that component of the water supply. And there, as you said, there's some options. We had a house burned down in my neighborhood, 2 doors down from me, because we didn't have water. So that's another component that we really need to take into consideration for all of our areas outside of the city limits. My second question is from the financial perspective. So, and thank you, Chief. I appreciate you explaining that to us. It's an ongoing conversation.
Yes, ma'am.
The financial portion, how are you proposing that we pay for this fire station?
We have a couple of options. I would, as far as a recommendation would go, I would recommend that we bond the project. Now, there are some things. The other option that we have would be to put it on a splost, but there's a number of years here before we can have another splost. The other option would be to pay for the station out of cash reserves. Now, the item that was added to the agenda regarding the Public Facilities Authority, we had discussion today with our bond counsel. His recommendation was that we take a look at forming an authority because we would get a lot more favorable terms when it came to the bond issues, and we would be able to save money. So that's why we put it on here tonight, because it does require an action by the General Assembly in order for us to do that. time is of the essence. The legislature only meets for so many days annually, and we're about halfway through this year's session. So if we wanted to do that, I wanted to make sure that was being considered. There would be debt involved with it. We would have to make sure that we made provision to pay that. During the first year, we would be paying basically interest only. And we're looking at probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 during that first year. When a construction's completed, that first year is like a drawdown on a construction loan. At the end of that, the construction time, so it may bleed over into fiscal 21 or 22, but that next year then we would begin paying interest and principal. And we estimated that cost to be somewhere in the neighborhood of based on $3.5 million, about $370,000 for the debt on that. Brittany White is here tonight, and she has done several calculations regarding this, and can kind of help explain where we are with that. So, Chief, you're okay. Sit down, Chief. Thank you. Oh, you do? Hold on a second. Yeah.
Yeah, the principal the first year would be $330,000 based on a 1.9% interest rate, and our interest included, we would be looking around $400,000 for the first year.
So interest and principal around 4.
Mm-hmm.
And for how many years?
We did this on a 10-year scale. Based off $3.5 million.
And that's if we bond it.
That's correct.
And are one Georgia funds available for this?
I don't know. Do you know whether they are?
This calculation was actually through ACCG lease.
Okay.
Brittany, you said that's based on 3.5 million?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, y'all kind of answered some of my questions because I really wanted a timeline of the financial piece, but it sounds like you guys have given us the first year, end of construction, probably FY21, FY22. And then also I was looking at because I was looking at how we were saying that it's going to be $3 million. And then I was looking at the apparatus and equipment. So I was thinking that was going to bring it to about 3.7. If my calculation, a little bit over 3.7, if my calculations are correct. And then of course, personnel was going to be another 820,000. So we're looking at probably close to over $4 million.
Well,
and I know it'll be a timeline.
Right, but we would not include the personnel costs into the bond.
Okay.
And understand that these numbers are estimates. It depends on, there's a lot of variables. It depends on how much we have to pay for property, if we pay for property. The site itself, whether or not there's, how much groundwork has got to be done in order to prepare the site. What, if any, work that the county can do in terms of preparing the site, and then the ultimate design of the building and the cost of materials and so forth at the time that we do the design and that we enter into a contract with a contractor. So there are some variables here. This number may be a little low, it may be a little high. My recommendation to you would be that you make a determination whether to move ahead, and then we'll iron out, do the necessary work that we need to do in order to get some kind of a solid number so that we can come back to you and request that amount in a bond and move forward with the project from there.
Thank you.
So Lord, quick question. So we're going to use, the county going to do
No, I'm not saying that we would. It would depend greatly on what would have to be done. That would be one issue. The second issue would be if we do the work, then we're going to have to pull our road crews off of paving in order to, because most of those equipment operators do dual duty. So, and we could continue to pave, but we would use contracts in order to do the paving. The impact there would be that we'd get less road miles paved. But if we did the work, there would be other public works related projects that would have to be delayed until we could get those done. So, but it is possible. It may be possible that we do it if we get a very flat piece of property that does not have drainage issues, does not have a lot of trees or topography on it. Then it would be that amount of time it would take would be minimal.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Chief, the piece of equipment that you referenced that we've just purchased, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's a, I'll call it a tanker for lack of a better term. What was it?
Tender.
Okay. So, what is that can be used essentially to mitigate, offset some of the lack of the other resources we need, right? I know in our particular, the Dixie Road corridor is not going to help right there for right now, but in other areas of the county, can that produce 250, or how long can it produce 250 gallons of?
It really depends on the source we pinpoint to pull the static source. Depending on where in the county, and that's something we're going to have to start doing. Looking at lakes, ponds that we can access the thing. I don't know if a lot of y'all seen the new engine, but it's bigger than anything we got. I mean, fully loaded with water, that truck's pushing 70,000 pounds. So we're trying to get the most water to these incidents that have no water, and then depending on how far they have to travel to load that. And I'm going, if I'm not mistaken, and Chief Redmond, I know is here. Once we did the training on that truck, we loaded 4,000 gallons of water in what, 3 minutes or something. This is a specialty tanker. It's called a vacuum tender. So we can load it a lot faster, but that truck, it was completely empty, and they loaded 4,000 gallons of water on it just over 3 minutes. So then, depending on the road miles you have to travel to a static source, that thing is going to fill faster than a hydrant can fill a normal fire truck. Most of our hydrants might be delivering, around 1,200 to 2,000 gallons a minute. So this thing, I mean, it is designed to move water. But we're going to have to pinpoint these areas that we can get this truck to, vacuum up the water, and get it back. But like I say, it's going to take a lot of trial and error, pinpointing these. But we've done kind of pull the ISO requirements, and all these have to be listed, and ISO will come out, and then they will say, okay, point A, and using this cistern or a static water source, show me you can deliver 250 gallons of water for 2 hours. And then we actually have to set up and start flowing that amount of water.
Thank you, Chief. My other question was, a new station would be, how many acres are required for a new station?
I've talked to our project manager, Jeff Prine, who is helping us on Station 8. One of the parcels we've looked at is right at or just under 2 acres. He said we could probably get that, but it really needed, he recommended that we continue to look at 3 to 4 acre tracts.
All right. So, okay. Well, thank you for that. So I just want to make sure that you and Lloyd saw the 2 long and short term proposals I sent to you guys yesterday, right?
Yes. Matter of fact, County Manager Kerr and I talked to them about a lot of the things you sent before you sent that email.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Cowell.
I think I said everything at the last meeting, but I'm just ready to move forward.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Henderson.
So I guess what I'm hearing is the estimate was, I think last time we spoke, last meeting 5 million, so it's down to 4 million. I mean,
What we're looking at is about 3.5 million. Maybe a little bit more than that, depending on some of the estimates, but we're looking at 3.5 to 4 million would be a good range until we nail some more of the costs down.
So Lord, quick question. So are we putting a number on this tonight, or are we just asking for a motion to move forward tonight?
No, sir, I'd prefer you not put a number on it until we bring that number back, a solid number, more solid number back to you. At this point, I just need the direction to move ahead or not.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we allow the county manager and the fire chief to move forward with building another fire station on the east side and the border District 1 and District 5 as they see fit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It's been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Cowan. Any more discussion? All in favor? Thank you. It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda is item number 9, consent agenda. I seek a motion that we approve. It's been motioned by Commissioner Edwards and second by Commissioner Mason. Any more discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the item is item number 10, discussion and consideration of the purchase of Aurea Cousins School. Mr. Kerr, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting, the discussion about purchasing the R.L. Cousins Center was brought up and discussed, and I told you that what I would do would be to bring back some estimates to give you a little bit better idea of what it might cost in order to remodel and to rehabilitate the site to where it would be more useful and more attractive, but also really more useful, and would also serve some of the needs that we have for space and so forth. So what I have had prepared for you is that you have there in your handouts, gives you a brief description of the improvements that are necessary. Also, you will see on the second page, you'll see a plat of the tract. It's about a little over a 27 acre tract. And you'll see the portion there that we're looking at, which includes the Cousins School as well as the gymnasium and the ball field. Over the number of years that the county has been involved in leasing this particular property, we have expended monies to do necessary repairs to the inside of the gym, and then also there had been funds that were spent on putting in the ball fields, but those were all done according to our lease agreements with Cousins Community Center, Inc. And you'll see as you flip on over, you'll see some future things that could also be put into the property, playground, another play field, a possible walking trail. The school system does own the remainder of the property to the north, and so there may be an opportunity there as well if the county wanted did decide to purchase this and to expand it. The next page you'll see has got a layout. It's pretty small, a lot of mice type there, but it does have a layout of the school, and you'll see how it's been divided into 5 different areas. And so then as you flip to the next page, you'll see area 1 there. We're looking at what might possibly be those areas might be used for. In section 1 there, you'll see the community multipurpose space. That is the space that's currently occupied by DDS, the Department of Driver Services. They have been, they would like to stay in Newton County, and they have been in this building for a number of years. But this particular portion of the building has had some difficulty with leaks and with some mold and so forth. And so they have approached us about a year ago, to see about the possibility of maybe moving into another site. However, if we were able to keep them on that site is particularly suited for the driver services because of the driving tests and so forth. Large parking area. They do handle quite a large number of people through there on a weekly basis. People that do come in from other counties and Newton and Rockdale and all parts east. So we would like to keep them. Prior boards had expressed an interest in keeping them in Newton County. So if you look at section 2, you'll see where we would, there was initially proposed to move the Department of Driver Services. And then you'll see there's a part there where Parks and Recreation would take over the portion there where the lunchroom had the stage and all. The remainder of that building would need to be revamped in terms of the floor coverings, paint, also sprinklering and so forth. There's not at this point, there's not an identified use for all of that space. You'll see, I'm sorry, let me go back on you for just a minute. EMA would be, and under section 1, EMA would continue to use that section that was formerly used by the 911 operations. The intent there would be to remodel that area into an emergency operations center that we could keep in place on a permanent basis, and it would have all of the fiber and all of the communications networks and all there, so that if we did have an emergency, if we did have a tornado or a flood or any of those things, then we would have a dedicated site where all of the agencies could gather and provide the emergency services that would need to be done. Keep Newton Beautiful also has expressed an interest in moving there, and also that they need additional space. They do provide quite a bit of classroom training, if you will, for elementary school kids, as well as for the community. And there are several demonstration projects that they do on an annual basis, but they have no fixed place to do that. And so this would provide them enough room to bring in large groups of kids so that they could provide the instruction on recycling and so forth, and also to meet with members of the community, all of the any interested civic groups or neighborhood groups, and so it would provide them that space. If you look over to page 3, area 3, you'll see a large portion of this part of the campus would be used by the Parks and Rec department to enhance their programming. Pardon me, they're looking at adding programs for a various number of things, and would provide a large community space with a stage where you could have different types of entertainment in there. And then you'll see there's the addition of a small office area. We'd like to retain the kitchen that's there. The retention of the kitchen could be for several purposes. One, it could be used in emergency situations where we have a large number of evacuees. We do have several rivers in the county that flood on a fairly regular basis, and so sometimes we have to move large numbers of people out of their homes. It could be used for that. It also could be used, one of the things that we have thought about is that it could be a temporary space to be used for the senior members of the community, for one. It could, and then also it could be an instructional area. That's one of the things Rec would like to move into. So those are some of the uses there that we could possibly have for that. Again, you'll see some of the other area that's marked for future build out. some of the classrooms would be used by recreation for some of their programming. Board of Elections, you'll see there also, they need about twice the amount of space that they currently have in the admin building. It's very, very crowded over there with the recent voting machines that were approved by the state. If you go by their office over there, you'll see that they have boxes and boxes and boxes of things. And they need to have a secure place in order to store those. But they also need to have a conditioned space to store those, so we cannot put them in unconditioned warehousing, and we really have no place to store those that is convenient. The storage areas that we have don't have access to freight elevators and so forth. So we are looking at a place where there would be direct access to a loading dock, and this building would provide that. It also provides a very large space for early voting, and this could be used as a polling place. And there's quite a strain on the building as well as the public, for that matter, during elections, because the administration building is a secured site, and therefore anyone that enters the building has to go through the metal detection. It takes quite a bit of time. You routinely see long lines down Pace Street. And this would allow the Board of Elections a large enough space to bring people in so that they didn't have to wait out into the weather. We don't have a whole lot of cold weather here, but we certainly have a lot of hot weather, and that can be just as uncomfortable. But we need a good place, storage place for all of that equipment. It's much, much larger than the equipment that we had in the past. And so it takes up quite a bit more space. And you'll see there on the number 4, where you see the Board of Elections would take up what space they're looking at, and we'd have a secured parking area so that the trucks that take and deliver the voting equipment would have a secure area to load and unload, so that we would be able to keep that the chain of I can't think of the word. You know what I mean? Who has it? It's become very important, and there's quite a few new security measures that the state is imposing now on elections equipment and the elections folks. Department of Juvenile Justice, State Department, has offices there. They are interested in staying, and so we would look at them to stay. The other area could possibly be a community museum, and we're looking at about 3,500 square feet there. The landscaping and the area around the front there would also have to be redone, of course, for ADA parking, and we'd have to have some additional parking spaces to help facilitate that as a polling place. Number 5 is the gymnasium area. There are some improvements that are needed there. Also, it appears that there's some unused space there that we could capitalize on and actually be able to put in another half court that could be used simultaneously with the full-size court. It could be used for practices. It could be used for pickup games. There's a lot of different things that it could possibly be used for. But it would give more playing surface. That gym is very heavily used now. We use it for all of the Little League, Little League basketball, but also for summer camps and so forth. So that gives you an idea of the use of that. Now, if you look at the next page, you'll see what Mr. Prine did a walkthrough with us, and we talked a little bit about these possible uses. And I'm going to ask Mr. Prine if he'll come up at this time to maybe address you all and to talk a little bit about the conditions and all that he found the building in, and then to speak to the numbers that you see here on what would be necessary and how he may have arrived at those. So, Jeff, if you'll.
Good evening. Yes, sir. Good evening. So, as Lord had mentioned, I had an opportunity to kind of walk the site with the staff and with some other members of the community. Basically, the building structurally is very sound. There really isn't any major structural issues that I can see. If you go back to the page that has all 5 different areas, I'll just kind of briefly talk about roofing. The only building that doesn't have a newer metal roofing system is building 1. And that's just really over a half of the building. It's had some roofing upgrades made to it, but I'm suggesting that we would probably need to put a new roof over top of that. Areas 2, 3, 4 are in good condition. The roof over the existing gymnasium would need to be replaced. It's been patched, but it's at the end of its life cycle and it would need to be replaced altogether. Generally, the only place that I saw a leak that you could visually see was in the current Department of Driver Services area. And that was the area that doesn't have the newer roofing system itself. One of the biggest challenges with this particular building is it really hasn't been renovated in a very long time. So there's a lot of building systems that would need to be upgraded. So when we looked at the building itself, we know that we'd have to bring it up to code for fire alarm systems or sprinkler systems and so forth. I did put some money in our budget for environmental because I know that there's some areas that have been leaked on that we're going to have to deal with some mold. And there's always little hidden areas that you just can't see when you start doing this kind of work. But generally, I thought the building was in good shape. The grounds themselves were in reasonable shape, but what I've noticed was there really wasn't a really good drainage system. The water comes off the hill across the parking lot and drains toward the building and down through the courtyards of the building. So I've put money into the budget for us to develop a better drainage system to collect that water and to take it out, also collect the water off the roofs and directly take that water out of the areas itself. And then going back to the budget estimate, I'll just kind of walk you through it and answer questions. So from the site, like I said, there was drainage improvements. The asphalt would need to be repaired, patched, and some areas repaved around the roadways and the parking areas. In the front area where we talked about putting the Board of Elections and where the Juvenile Justice Center is, they need closer access to ADA accessible parking and a few more parking spaces so that if you had visitors coming in and out on a regular basis, it would be easier for them to get in and out. So I put money in there for that. I've also put money in there to upgrade the domestic and fire water line systems obviously, if we're putting sprinklers in, we're going to have to do that. And also, we know that there is, at least on one of the buildings, a sewer problem where it continues to back up. So I put money into the budget for us to, do an investigation of the sewers and upgrade what we need to do there. And then just looking at this from a community point of view, if I was going to invest this kind of money, and you've already got Parks and Rec, a football field, and now these other facilities, what if we put in some things like a playground and maybe a small walking trail so you could get a wide variety of opportunities? So just a little money in for that. On the building, you can then see the different areas and what their totals were. And then on the back, the total comes in at, once we put in the total cost with our soft costs and contingency, just under $8.7 million. That's roughly about $175 a square foot, because we're talking about around 60,000 square feet in total. If we were to build that ground up, we probably would be somewhere closer to 20 million to build it ground up. So obviously there's some savings in the potential of renovating the building versus building brand new buildings from ground up, especially when you start talking about new gymnasiums and so forth as well.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you. I remember during our prior discussion when we went on that Wednesday, one of the things that we talked about was the Oracle Alumni Association, and they wanted to have access to that. I think the initial come in hallway and where the old library used to be at. And I was thinking that you had mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had mentioned that maybe the juvenile could renovate the old DMV, put them there, and go back and renovate that library space and have that space for that.
There is that opportunity. What I was trying to do, just to be honest, Commissioner, was to come up with what I thought was the most economical approach. And in looking at the space that the juvenile justice were in, it was recently, I'd say probably within the last 5 to 10 years, renovated. So it wasn't that old a space. But you know, if we were able to negotiate with them as part of their lease and everything, that would be an option.
Absolutely. I mean, from my observations, going in that particular part of the building, I noticed that it was exceedingly cramped.
It
In other
is.
words, you know, the office was about the size of that podium there, and I felt like that it needed to be just a little bit better, you know, for the services.
It certainly isn't ideal
for the community.
Yes, sir.
Also, one of the other things that you had mentioned was about a walking trail. And if my memory serves me right, maybe somebody from the rec could correct me, because we're looking at the cost of a additional football field so they could have a tournament over there and maybe a little park. But that's some kind of like maybe pie in the sky. But I think first thing is that we need to look at purchasing the building, and then we need to come up with a plan. But you got a plan of renovating it, and if we didn't do it all at once, we could do it in possible stages, so that we can make that hopefully happen for that community. And lastly, let me say this. Our cousin, you know, I can remember as a child that I was kind of slipped over there to all the games, to the games they had from the recent renovated football field, where cousin won 102-0 and to the football field in that oblong shaped gym, and those were the best days of my life. And lastly, and just cut it short, maybe reminiscing just a little bit, I can remember when during the civil rights time in '65 that we marched, and I was a little small or something, scared, kind of just scared because I had skipped school, know my grandma was gonna beat me down when I get home. We marched from our cousin up to the square, you know, and we were looking for, you know, maybe better times and better days, which it happened, and that was good.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a series of questions, so I'll just start firing away.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mock mentioned in his citizens' comments that we visited this subject several times, and we have over the course of the 11 years that I've been in office. But I can say that this is by far the most detailed master plan and budget that we have ever received. And I assume that's to yours and Lloyd's credit that we have received all of this information. I regret that the public didn't have the opportunity to see all this detail. I think it would be helpful if there's a way for us to get it to them, have it on the website, because this is exceedingly thorough. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Now, do you have any idea the current property that is there without any improvements that you've outlined? Do you have any idea what it would appraise for now?
I do not. I wasn't tasked with any of the appraisal of the land.
So it looks as though the site improvement subtotal is in the amount of $1.15 million. That does not necessarily include how much it would cost to purchase the building.
That is correct. That's just for the improvements.
Okay, so we still have to purchase the space.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't know what that appraised value would be. Do you know, Lloyd?
We understand that the appraisals have come back between 1.8 and 2.1 million.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. Who is the current owner of the property? Is it the bank? Is it an entity?
The bank holds the mortgage, but I believe it's Community or Cousins Community Center Inc. is the actual owner of the property. It is a 501c3 nonprofit.
So it's a nonprofit.
Yes,
that
that's
owns
correct.
it. Okay. So you mentioned when Commissioner Henderson was making his comments that this could in fact be staged. So we would not have to make all this $8.75 million plus the cost of the property. We wouldn't have to take on all of that debt at once.
Obviously, I mean, with every project, especially when you do a master plan, what my goal was to give you kind of a picture of what it could be for this particular layout and this purpose. And if you were to, develop a budget that was less than that, then we would phase accordingly.
And so in terms of looking at the funding sources, we could even put some of this on a future SPLOST.
Some of it could be, yes,
Okay.
if that's the desire of the board. Also, just let me note, when we did this is a very preliminary. So as far as the assignment of the space, there's a couple of things that we were trying to keep in mind. But the people who are here if we were to purchase the property, they may wind up actually a different spot than what you're seeing right now. But this was based on what we think is a best guesstimate. For instance, Commissioner Henderson mentioned about the Alumni Association. They may wind up being near this museum area. It could be that there's some other office space that they would like or prefer. So I just wanted to mention that. I mean, but this is a pretty good depiction of what we have at this point.
So, and my last question, because I know others have questions. So we have the third floor of the admin building that is vacant and empty.
That's correct.
And I guess what I would like to know is why this space versus renovating that space. What is the advantage to taking on this space versus renovating or adding to that, finishing off that space?
Sure. Well, one of the key things here, the Board of Elections needs to have, they have to have access to a roll-up door and trucks to load and unload. The only place in the building that's available is the one that they're in right now, and they need twice as much space now that we have the new equipment. So so that's one issue there. The Human Resources Department is in a very small office there in very cramped quarters. My thought would be to possibly move the HR department down to the space where elections is currently located, or move the agricultural extension office from its current space down to the elections office, and then allow HR department to spread into that space that is currently being used by Ag Extension. The third floor is unfinished. However, none of these uses are really conducive to that space. The EMA office is in the EOC center. That particular building is already wired for communications. The administration building is not. We currently have I believe it's a 60,000 kilowatt diesel generator at Cousins that could support the operation of the EOC and operation of a good bit of that building should there be a power outage that might last for a long period of time. So that's one of the reasons they would need to stay there. DDS needs to have a space that's got a parking lot and has a place to do the driving. And so, and that space they've been occupying, been there. The location is known. It's relatively easy to get to, but there's enough parking there to satisfy their needs. Keep Newton Beautiful. needs a lot more space than they have. It is possible that we could build out the third floor or build a portion of the third floor out to satisfy KNB's needs. However, in this particular instance, the configuration of the buildings at Cousins, the classroom configuration really is ideal for the type of instruction that they give and for the use of their for their uses. So the other issue with the third floor is a very large portion of that third floor, although it's not built out, is being used for record storage. The state requires that we retain certain records indefinitely. Primarily, those are court records. And in court records, we do have quite a bit of storage up there for court records. Some of the other ones that we have to retain for extended period of time are building plans and building permits for commercial buildings. Now, we have a good bit of that stored down in the Development Services office, but we also have some stored up on the third floor. So one of the other issues is that that building does not have, for instance, with elections, we had thought about maybe the possibility of putting elections up on the third floor, but we don't have any access. There are no freight elevators. And so when it came time to move all the equipment and all, it would be very difficult to move all of that equipment because we'd be interfering with and again, they've got no place for polling. So this building would give the recreation department, they've got to have the gym. That gym is used as I mentioned earlier, it's used on a regular basis. So regardless of whether we had the school or the other buildings, we would still need to either try to find a way to lease that, continue leasing the building, the gymnasium, the area where DDS is, essentially keeping what our current, the portions of the building that we currently occupy, which is the wing, D wing, which is on the number 1 sheet, and then the field, the use of the ball field, and also the use of the gym. Or we'd have to find we'd have to build those new structures. But the plans, the programming and all for the rec department, it is possible that we could construct, again, look at finishing out a portion of that third floor for classroom space to do some of the youth programs that rec department is looking at currently. However, it would be better if it were, it would operate a little more smoothly, I think, if you had as much of that in one area as possible instead of being spread out. A lot of the programs that are sports related could be done there, as well as a lot of the classroom type things. In short, the uses are not suited for the space for that particular space. A lot of for instance, going back to the recreation for a minute, a lot of their programming occurs in the evenings and on weekends. The administration building is not open on the evenings or weekends. It is a secured area, which would mean we'd have to also provide security for those extended hours and all. The cost to build out that third floor, it certainly wouldn't be $8 million, I know that. But there would be some considerable expense in doing that as well. We did have an estimate done about 3 years ago to the possibility of moving HR up there. At that point, we were looking at about $300,000, and that was simply to put up walls and to provide an air-conditioned space. So, but But that really is the answer to your question. These uses are not, the admin building is not built for these particular types of uses.
Can you talk a little bit about the courts that are asking for space as well?
Yeah, the other thing too, thank you for reminding me. Some of the accountability courts have been looking for additional room. The third floor of the admin building would really be a lot better space for them, because it would be in close proximity to public defender's office as well as to the district attorney's office. But because those courts are expanding, they have looked for office space in the past. Some of the, for instance, there was a period of time that I'm not sure exactly what they call it, the court, but it's part of the family court system for child support recovery. Did meet on the third floor in that open area. They didn't have an actual office, but they did have tables and chairs and so forth. And I believe they still might meet up there periodically. But those types of services, if you will, are expanding because they're trying to keep more people out of court, more people out of jail. And so they use the accountability system, and they use more mediators and all to try to solve those problems. So they're looking for more room. And so that would be a good space for them. Presumably at some point there's going to be a need for additional juvenile court space or support staff space. They do have their building, but they also are handling quite a larger number of clients than they did when they first put the building together. So I could see that space being used for those purposes.
Just to add, interesting enough about the area where the Board of Elections is proposed to go, the City of Covington Police actually use it for evidence storage now. So it has two large coiling doors that would be fairly ideal to load and unload the actual election equipment in and out. And that's what kind of caught the eye of the department director when we walk in the building, was that and the direct access off of the road, and the ability to kind of secure it in a secure area. So.
They could, yes. I mean, that was part of the discussion, was to have an area large enough to do that. Currently, we use the training room and the break room on the first floor of the admin building. I mean, the space works out, but the issue is all of the people that are lined up down the street waiting to come in and vote, because we have to go through all of the metal detectors and so forth. Well, and yeah, right. And
you want to address the changes that they made to the road out here for its parking wise?
You're talking about Page Street.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are some spaces that are being moved, and they've been changed quite a bit. I believe that the road is going to be also the improvement or changes to the road will be all the way up to the square where Page Street begins at the square. So there'll be some of those spaces will be removed, which would mean people would have to park further off site in order to get to get there when they're voting. So that would probably complicate things too. During the regular week, the parking, although the top levels of the parking deck are not always full, there are some times when they are, but the courts now, I mean, people are parking in the deck to go to for jury duty and to appear in court and so forth. So parking is becoming an issue for sure.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mason, and then Commissioner Edwards, and then Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Schultz took the words out of my mouth. This was very, very thorough. And as previously stated, I wish our citizens were able to actually see it. So maybe we can get it. And I know this is just basically a rough draft. It's not, a final draft. But at least to give the citizens an idea of where we're going and where we're moving, how beneficial it would be to retain and maintain the facility. And even knowing too that, if we were to build this type of facility, providing these services would cost us about 20 million. And to know that if we move forward with what we already have currently, it's going to save us about 11 million. A little bit over 11 million is going to save us. So I was excited to hear that. One question I did have as well was looking at it from a timeline perspective. If we were to move forward, and also too, I think, Lloyd, we mentioned about possibly bonding to looking at bonding to actually purchase the facility.
Yes. If pardon me, if the board were to decide that they wanted to purchase the facility, I would recommend that you bond the purchase as well as the improvements, whatever the improvements that you wanted to do. If you wanted to phase it and do certain improvements now, you could always bond whatever portion of that you wanted to do and then come back at a later date. Or you could also bond a portion of the improvements and then the remainder of the improvements maybe be placed on the next SPLOST to see, if we do have another SPLOST. So there's a couple of different options there, that you could do should you decide that you wanted to purchase the building.
So how long would it take us to basically, because I'm looking at the list of the improvements that would need to be done. Do we know of a timeline about how long it would take? Like, would it take us 3 months, 6 months, a year to kind of start really, once we purchase the product, to really get the majority of these knocked out so that we can start placing services like the BOE and Keep Newton Beautiful, being able to place them in this facility?
So this is a great candidate for design build because it's a renovation project, which means we could go out and solicit a design and build team. We could bring them on, and we could design and build at the same time. So certain areas are not as intensive as the others. So like Keep Newton Beautiful, where when we walked the space with her, there it's about a refresh and upgrading some of the systems and the carpet and stuff like that, the lighting. The DDS area, it's a total gut. So, but I'd say overall that we probably could, depending on what all we took on, we could address majority of it within 14 months, 16 months through that process.
Thank you.
Because we could also be doing some of the site improvements while we're working on the building improvements at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Lloyd, right now we're a tenant.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, what are our current terms? Oh, the terms of our lease right now.
Essentially, the lease says that the landlord is responsible for the exterior of the building. We are responsible for all of the interior of the building, including the HVAC systems, any interior plumbing, any interior electrical. We're responsible for all of that.
Okay, so at the moment, there are, in your estimation, what type of paying tenants are at this facility right now, other than us?
The juvenile court, and I don't know what the arrangement is with the city of Covington.
And then the Department of Driver Services, right?
Department of Driver Services does not pay any lease. They don't my understanding is that they don't pay any leases anywhere, that at some point, I guess there was the thought that they do provide a much needed service to the counties where they're located, and those counties have been providing spaces for them for whatever period of time that's been.
And they're privatized now, right?
My understanding is they were still part, I thought they were still Georgia, a state agency, but because they do get their funding from the legislature.
And the last question is, so the outright purchase price was what? Did I miss it? I mean,
We haven't said, but the purchase price would be $1,198,000.
That's correct.
so almost 1.2 million to purchase the property.
Yes, sir.
tomorrow.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lord, Commissioner Henderson is next. A quick question. So we now pay a lease of how much?
It's roughly $11,000 a month, which I think is that $130,000 a year. I believe that's correct. My math is not very good, but
Yeah. And we've been paying that amount for
a number of years. From the early arrangement was a little bit different than what we have now, but a few years ago, I think the dollar amounts changed, and I don't know if it was prior to this board, so it would have been, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
And how long do we have on this lease?
The current lease is until 2023.
At that same amount?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to kind of respond just a little bit and then touch on our records a little bit about historical buildings. This building right here, where we have conduct our meetings, is the historic courthouse. And I was on the board when when the citizen of Newton County came in and said that they want to restore this building. We could have easily pushed it down, but it was the historical value to the citizens of Newton County. Same as the value is to the citizens of our cousin. Hey, I think we all Newton Countyans. Amen. And I believe all of us pay taxes. So we decided to renovate it. We estimated at $4 million. Guess what? Boom, it went up to $8 million. This building right here, way back then. And so, but nobody complained because they were what the citizens of Newton County wanted. I didn't complain. And so we built it. And then this is a nice historical building that something we all can be proud of. I said that to say that people on this side, well, no, we all knew one. At least that's what I was told. This is what it always been said and written in the paper. We all knew one. So they want to restore the historic building that means a lot to this community, our community. And we should be figuring a way out of how to do it rather than trying to figure out a way how not to do it. So let's do it. I mean, there's no wrong way to fix up something for the community. 5 million, if it was 10 million. I think if you would divide the taxes down the line, when homes is more than 10 million that we pay in taxes. So all thing what I'm saying is let's get this done for once and fix it. And I'm hoping that what my hopes are is that the county manager and the chairman sit down with our cousin, people who own it, the 501c3, and negotiate something that's reasonable for all of us. And let's move forward and fix this for the community. We already invested, I think, $500,000 splash money on the gym. I know because I put on the splash. Arthur Blank invested another $250,000 on the gym. The football field, that came from general fund money when they said general fund money couldn't be spent on a football field. It was made nice. And remember people who did something positive in our community. DMV, it was over here at the old jail, people falling out in the hot sun. So when they renovated and started using over there, once it was a decent place that people go and sit down comfortably, and then it didn't happen again. So, you know, I think we should come together for once and do something positive.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. So Lord, so do you suggest tonight that we seek a motion to purchase the building and then, like we did with the fire station, come back with the hard number?
Yes, sir. I think if the board is inclined to purchase the building, then at this point, what we would need was simply to that direction. And then we could look at bringing back some concrete numbers, and then if there are other options outside of bonding, we could bring those to you at that time, and we'd have a dollar amount that we would want to bring back for your consideration and what part of the project to do.
Thank you, sir. If there are no other questions, I seek Commissioner Schultz.
I was just gonna tell you, I pulled up my notes from 2015, and this lease has been since May of 2015, and I have all the documentation of what was, we've actually, they're making us a much better offer than what we were made in 2015. So.
Thank you, ma'am. I seek a motion of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make the motion as was stated by the chair.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Henderson and second by Commissioner Mason. Any other discussion? Commissioner Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the discussion and the detailed analysis of what the proposed use would be out there. I guess from my perspective at this point, the $8 million is just, I guess I've hit my debt limit for tonight as far as running my credit card. I'm just not ready to do this yet. And I'm just gonna let you know.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Edwards.
So let me understand our motion correctly is tonight is to move forward with the purchase at 1.198 million. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And that is all.
It's kind of like we did the fire station. They're gonna go back and come back and give us some hard numbers, and then we'll like it come back before the board, just like the fire station will have to come back before the board.
So well, let me clear that up then. The purchase though is also tied to a bond for renovation. Is that correct?
Well, or whatever option that we're able to come up with other than that, but presumably it would be a bond. But the dollar amount of the bond we don't have at this particular point. We do. That's all. Yeah.
But we didn't state bond in our motion. We just made a motion to move forward. Is that correct?
Right.
Thank you.
If you want to move forward with this, then yes, I would include that in your motion so that we know then that we want to put the purchase along with any improvements into a bond, assuming that's the direction you want to go.
Commissioner Schultz.
I don't think we need to complicate it at this point.
Okay.
I think
That's
that
fine.
what we need is we need to decide an up or down vote on whether we want to
do
purchase
it.
the
Okay, that's fine.
property. And then we come back because there's lots of other options to look at for the financing.
Yes,
of
I
this
mean,
property.
there are
I don't
several
think
other
we need
things.
to
You're right.
complicate that.
That's fine.
I'm gonna have Ms. Jackie to read back the motion that Commissioner Henderson would have made and Commissioner Mason will have second.
The motion is seeking a motion to purchase the building tonight and come back with concrete numbers and other funding options for the board's consideration.
You good with that motion? You good with that second? Any more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It passes 5-0. Thank you. You gonna do it? Okay, hold on. Hold on, guys. No, yeah, he with it. Yeah, he with it. Thank you, sir. Um. Okay. 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 Yeah. Thank you, guys. Um, next is item number 11, Public Works. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our transportation engineer, Chester Clegg, is here tonight to address the board on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here, Chester. Give me what will. Hey guys, we greatly appreciate all of you, but got to let you know we're still in a live board meeting, please. Right, sir.
There's a 20-foot wide by 10-foot high box culvert that's on Gum Creek Road near Edwards Road, and if you ride by, we've got barrels out. The edge of the road is starting to slough off, and because the concrete culvert has collapsed, the head wall to the culvert has collapsed, and so we are requesting that the board approve giving the contract to Peach State Construction for $56,000 to repair that culvert head wall.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Cowan.
I'd like to make a motion to approve awarding the culvert windfall replacement on Gum Creek Road at 5 Mile Branch to Peach State Construction LLC, cost $56,000, funding with 2011 SPLOST.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Cowan and second by Commissioner Schultz. Any discussion? All in favor? It passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Chester. Next is the Rec Department, Nelson Height, requests approval of construction contract. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The rec department will be installing a new basketball courts at Nelson Heights Community Center. Mr. Turner is here tonight with the rec department should you have any questions about this particular item.
Is that basketball or tennis?
It's basketball, yes. The name of the company is Signature Tennis Courts, but they're actually building a basketball court.
Wow.
And Mr. Turner can tell you what the.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here.
So I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Guys, any questions tonight? No questions. Thank you, sir. All in favor? We didn't get a motion. Oh, okay. Seek a motion.
I make a motion to approve what was presented by the chair.
It's been motioned by Commissioner Henderson and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? Commissioner Cowan.
Just want to make sure that this was part and it's consistent with that master plan that, who's the lady that did that? Cheryl Delk.
Cheryl Delk.
I'm sorry, Cheryl Delk put that together back in 2015, I believe. And that is a part of that. Is that correct?
It did include playground area, basketball, and
I
did
knew there was a
include
football
playing.
field on there.
And there were some
basketball
fields playing fields as
This
well.
is part of that spot.
Yes, and this is the money that's paying for this is the District 4 park upgrades from the 17 SPLOST.
Thank you, Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this money has been accrued to date, or is this going to be, is this part of the bonded project?
This was part of the fund, the bond. Yeah, this. Excuse me. This money is part of the SPLOST funds that were bonded. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is item number 16, the final reading for,
The budget calendar.
you're right, you're right. I forgot about that. Next is 12A, the budget calendar. Mr. Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to ask that you all look at the dates on the budget calendar. We've been contacted by one of the commissioners that had a conflict on one of the dates, and we'd like to have all of you here. So, Ms. White, if you could come up and we could, if all of these dates, if you are in agreement with all of them, we would like to make a recommendation though on April 9th. And if you'll go ahead with that.
We would like to propose to move April 9th, since you're not going to be available, to April the 16th, which is a Thursday. There is a Solid Waste Authority meeting that day at 5:30, so we would like to propose to move it to 6:30 on April the 16th.
I would just say that April 9th is during spring break, so I think that I don't know how many of us are going to be out of town on spring break, so that's why I would like it moved to the 16th.
That's fine. So if that's what we're wanting to do, not a problem.
Is that the only date?
That.
Is that the
So,
only? I think count
yeah,
it
there
out.
are,
I think.
let's look at the calendar here.
The
real quick.
calendar that you have in front of you should have dates highlighted in yellow, and those would be the dates that we would ask the board to be present.
They're the ones, it's in black and white, so it's the shaded area.
Oh, sorry.
One that says workshops, right? Plus.
Yes.
Plus underneath the proposed.
So is spring break the 6th through the 10th? Is that when spring break is? So actually, the meeting on the 7th and the 9th, both.
Well, but that's is the 7th a board meeting?
There is a board meeting at 7, and we had intended these on April the 7th. There's a board meeting, and we intended these citizen workshops to go for an hour. Essentially, it was an opportunity for the citizens to ask questions about the budget process, and so forth. And so that would be before the meeting on April 7th. But if so,
I think we're good with that. We got to be here for a board meeting anyway.
okay.
Yeah.
So April 9th is the only one then we're looking at rescheduling, and we're looking at the 16th. Was that
Yes,
right?
the 16th.
We would do that after the Solid Waste Authority meeting. Okay. Is that good? Okay. Just yes, it's on Thursday. It would be from 6:30. We tentatively schedule at 6:30 to 7:30.
Can I get a motion to approve the budget calendar with those changes, please?
I move for approval of the budget calendar with the changes as stated from April 9th to April 16th.
Thank you. It's been motioned by Commissioner Schultz, a second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Passes 5-0. Next is 12B, discussion and consideration of establishing a Newton Public Facility Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, we were made aware, by our bond counsel that we might want to consider the creation of an authority just, for this particular purpose. It would be a public facilities authority. And the benefit to us in creating that would be some savings that we would have when it came to issuing bonds. There could be some savings in the fees, but also that we'd be able to get a better rate. And so this does have to go to the legislature. And so we would request that you approve this, sending this to the pending or legal review, and then send it to our delegation for consideration.
Guys, any questions? Well, we'll let Commissioner Schultz go first. Commissioner Schultz.
We have a public facilities committee, so this is not an authority. That what we have is not an authority. An authority would be able to issue money.
That's correct.
And what we have currently can't issue money.
No.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, what was the question again? I'll clear it up because I'm pretty familiar with this one.
So I'm pretty sure we have a public facilities committee, or
Yes, that's what Ms. Jackie has made us aware of this evening. That at some point in time that the county had constituted a committee. So what I will do in the morning is look and see if it's still current as far as your local legislation. And if not, we will write the local legislation tomorrow and get it to the Capitol Post haste.
I know I have an appointee on it. Right. But I just know that I have an appointee on it.
I know we have a couple more questions, but can you explain just a little bit more in detail about what all they would do?
Essentially, what they would do, they would be the issue. They could be, or not necessarily would be, but they could be the issuing authority for bonds for us for instance, for these projects we just discussed tonight, or
would they have to approve? Would they have to approve the bonds?
Yeah.
Or would it come? Would that be something that the board?
I believe that you would be, yes, it would, and you would also guarantee them. But they could issue them just the same way as the.
Would they have the authority to say no? We're not wanting to issue those bonds or take on that project?
That I don't know.
Yeah, I want to make sure we don't take take
I think
authority out of the commission.
Right. No, I think that's part of the pending legal review.
Okay.
But this was brought to us, like I said, late this afternoon. Our bond counsel suggested we might want to do this. I've not had time to read through this Authority Act. It's kind of lengthy to determine all of that. To be quite honest, we're simply looking at this point. We're trying to figure out if this would be a good deal for us, and whether or not we should do it. We would not move ahead with it if we had those questions. So, but Ms. Martin was going to do all the review for us and get that.
Anybody want to do that? Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a motion to table the Newton County Public Facility Authority until further research done by our county attorney.
Thank you, sir. It's been motioned by Commissioner Mason and second by Commissioner Henderson. Any more discussion? Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as I recall, when I first joined this board in the beginning of 2017, we had an authority in place that issued bonds, and as far as I know, that authority is still in place. That issues bonds on it's the DeKalb, Gwinnett, and Newton County authority. So, what difference would there be? I can tell you the only difference there would be. It sounds like we'll be on the hook for these. The county will be on the hook for these bonds, and whereas we're not for those bonds, that authority issues. So, my suggestion would be to research, or my request would be to research as we move this to the legislature, if we want to do this, is to research a way that it has to meet approval, a supermajority approval on this board before it goes anywhere for a bond issuance.
Well, I think that's kind of what we were saying. We want to make sure that it didn't take the authority from this board. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor? Thank you. That's tabled until we hear back from our county attorney. Thank you. Item number 16, final reading. Alcohol license, South Fork Exxon 10571 Flat Shoals Road, Covington, Georgia 316, District 4, BT Patel. Yeah. Final reading. Can I get a second, please? It's been motioned by Commissioner Henderson and second by Commissioner Mason. Any discussion? All in favor? Passes 5-0. Thank you. The next one is the first reading. Texaco Food Mart 2156 Highway 81 North, Oxford, Georgia 30054. Kushwander Singh. That's the first reading. Next on the agenda is item number 18, citizen comments. You have an opportunity to come up and make comments tonight. You may do so at this time. Please come and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Troy Phillips. I live at 50 Old Pond Place. And thank you for moving forward with the fire station. We need that very much. But I wanted to bring to your attention a rate increase of homeowners policy for my parents. I speak on behalf for them. And this is for their 2020 homeowners insurance. And it is due to fire protection class changes. It's an increase of $1,065. Okay. That's above and beyond what they're paying. Okay. Maybe we got rid of the volunteer fire stations a little too soon, and we need immediate relief. Okay. I have not gotten a rate increase yet. I know it's coming, but we need something temporary to appease the ISO, and that may be to reinstate volunteer firemen. Okay. They're what they were doing, those buildings didn't cost the county $4 million. Okay. So what can we do, and what can what can you do as a committee to give us some relief? Okay. Even if it's temporary till the fire station is built, can we reinstate the volunteer firemen? Why did we get rid of the volunteer firemen? Okay. So this is a lot of money. Now you're talking about a lot of money, but we're also talking about a lot of money on these homeowners increase on their insurance. That is going to be a lot of money. And if it's going to be a couple of years before a fire station is built, it's going to be even more money. Okay. Because some of these insurance companies, it takes them a little while to get around, but eventually they'll get to everybody. And it's going to include a lot of you. Okay. I know it will. But my concern is why did we get rid of volunteer firemen? They were essential, obviously, to the welfare of this county. And most of those fire stations were built. How much money did it cost the county? How much did it cost the county? Hardly nothing if it cost the county any money. Okay. A lot of those fire stations were built, out of pocket. Okay. People contributed to it, and the volunteer firemen, they don't cost you anything. Okay. So what can we do? We need immediate relief, and we need you to do it quickly. But we also want you to build the fire station as quickly as possible. Okay. And that's all I have, but I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you moving forward with the fire station.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Charlie Alexander, 794 Cooper Road, Social Circle. Basically, I'm here to speak of the same thing Troy just spoke of, except I want to show a little more concern. I'm actually blaming people that's up here for this. Not happy with some of the things you've done. Not happy with our new county fire chief. Stan, you already know.
we put our trust in you guys. We voted you in. And basically, I want to say we can vote you out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Alexander, 794 Cooper Road. I believe I'm the youngest member or the youngest person that is here today. I want to speak on the concerns of what Mr. Troy, as well as my father, said. This is my generation that's coming up now, and this is what my generation is going to have to see going forward. We live on the outskirts of town. The closest fire station to us was at Dixie Road. It was shut down. If my house were to go up in flames tonight, the closest fire station, I believe, is in Mansfield, which would take them 10, 15 minutes to get to my house. No, nothing in the city limits of Covington is close enough to get to my house. I'm going to speak to all of you as parents. If you had a child that was trying to come up and make their way in this community, how would you feel if now they are in jeopardy if their house went up in flames, nobody is there in time to be able to protect them, to save the things they have saved and they have worked for? I just want y'all to consider that, because as it was said, the members of this community voted to put people in place because we trusted them. I'm 28 years old, and I have seen so many things change over the past, from I graduated high school until now, that have made me kind of not want to be in Newton County anymore. And that's very hard for me to say, because generations and generations of my family have been here. So please, please, like Mr. Troy said, if there's any way to get the volunteer fire stations back up and running as soon as possible to save people like my parents money, we would greatly appreciate it as their children, because now we are seeing the burdens that they are going to have to go through. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you. Commissioner Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate y'all coming out. Charlie, your daughter, Troy. Appreciate y'all coming out and voicing your concerns. Yesterday, I sent a proposal to the fire chief that I believe we have I've got it to where we can work out a deal with the lady that owns the former volunteer fire station. Now, the demise or the whatever happened to the volunteers happened 3 chiefs ago. That's just the way it is. So my proposal is that we go in and, using funds that we already have, and we reopen that fire station and put career firefighters back in that fire station in the short term. Now, there's some logistics that have to be worked out with that. I'm hoping it can be done. I just can't promise that at this moment, but I believe we've got a way to do that, to bridge the gap between that and a new fire station. So I'm going to work with the chief, I'm going to work with the county manager, and hopefully the other commissioners to maybe get that done. So that's what we're working toward right now, to address, Troy, what you said in the short term. And our volunteer firefighters guarded my house and my parents' home for forever. We're a county of 115,000 citizens now. And the demise, or I hate to say demise, the way of the volunteer firefighter took a downturn 3 chiefs ago, and we can't reverse that. That's just the way it is. So it's unfortunate. I hate things played out the way they did. I got friends I got to look in the eye and talk to them about their number one, the protection of their home. Number 2, their insurance premiums, and very close friends, by the way. But that's where we are right now. I want, moving forward, I would ask Lloyd and the chief that whatever we do, we be expedient. We waste no time. And I'm going to ask this board for that same favor when comes time for a vote. Mr. Cowan's feeling the same pressures I'm feeling. We're uncovered on a major swath in the middle of our county. So I appreciate any attention everybody can pay to this particular issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just briefly wanted to add, the last meeting, I talked about the voter equipment demonstrations that we're having. There have been a couple added. There will be an additional one on February the 10th at 6:30 p.m. at Washington Street Community Center, 4138 School Street in Covington, Georgia 30014. So there will be another one. And then there's also going to be another voting demonstration that's going to take place on February 26th from 6 o'clock p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. at Porter Memorial Library. So those two additional demonstrations are going to be available for our citizens. And I encourage our citizens to go out and really familiarize yourself with these voting machines, voting equipment. It is rather simple, but there are some things that you want to know. For example, once the paper copy comes out, you want to ensure that you go back over and scan it. And once you scan the ballot, it goes into an actual lockbox. And so you want to make sure that when you go to vote, you don't just fold that piece of paper up and think that, well, I'm done voting, because the vote doesn't count until that ballot is actually scanned and placed into the lockbox that's right there at the scanner. So we want to be familiar with how it works and how it operates, so that, you know, we're as educated voters are in position so that when we go in, we know how to do that. So I just wanted to bring those additional voter demonstrations to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 3 years ago, and over Thanksgiving weekend, the house 2 doors down from me burned down. The gentleman that owned the house was in Africa treating Ebola patients. And it was terrifying to watch that house burn down. They never rebuilt it. Every day when I walk in my neighborhood, I pass by the place where that house was. And so I think that everyone on this board is concerned and sensitive to your concerns in your community. We need to make sure that we have firefighters that are qualified to serve in that area, because the rules have changed, and we want to make sure that we are following those rules, because if we don't, then the ISO ratings they won't change either, because that was part of the problem, is that those qualifications are tied to the ISO ratings. In my neighborhood, we didn't have water. So I think that there are all kinds of considerations that we have to be mindful of on this board, and that we are very sensitive to the safety of our citizens and the safety of your homes. That being said, I also want to voice my concern that, and I wholeheartedly approve the building of a new fire station. I've got one going on in my district, but it does concern me that we have voted to bond a lot of projects, and I think that we need a list of those projects that we have bonded since the last budget we approved. And we need that before we have another meeting. We need to know exactly what those bonds, our bond commitment is going forward, the length of those bonds, and what that impact is going to be in terms of our future budgets. So if you could get that to us as quickly as possible.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just just want to take a second just to talk a little bit about a young lady that I never knew. In fact, before I even was born, she had died. And who I want to talk about is Donna White Pace. And she was a slave, and when she was born as a slave to the Alexanders. And then when the Civil War came and she was about 8 years old, she went somehow or another they got her to Atlanta to a university where she could be educated. And once she was educated, you know the first place she came to? Covington. She came to Covington. Donna Pace. And she wanted to be a teacher, and she was a teacher. And she teach the children. She had a spirit, I believe, one of servitude. Give back to the community that she felt really needed to be given back to. She built a foster home on Donna Pace. I mean, you know, so, and then she died. I mean, you know, then years came and she died. She died January 25th, 1933. These are people that did a lot in this community. It never would be recognized. In fact, I wouldn't have known it unless it was brought to my attention. But there's so many stories because Newton County is a melting pot. It was a melting pot back then. It's a melting pot even today. A lot of people live here, love here. And I'm just gonna conclude by saying, hey, we supported everything that Stan brought to about trying to go down on that. Yeah, my hands up. But let's understand we have a whole lot of stuff that we have to go through and look at too as well. And I'm pretty sure on his direction, we're gonna do it as fast and as soon as him and Commissioner want.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Calvin. Can you talk in the mic, please?
The Harris Springs station would be the closest one, which for a couple of years, that station was abandoned. We didn't have anybody staffing it. And it's just in the last year and a half, I guess, we finally got the adequate fire personnel to staff that station full time. So you will have, and it may be outside the 5 mile radius, or 5 mile. I'm not sure what station number it is. It is 15. It's on right there off of Harris Springs Road and Georgia 11. But that should be probably, in my mind, that's probably the quickest response to it. And I would say it was probably about a 7-minute response to somewhere on Cooper Road, maybe. That's what I would think. But anyway, we're doing our best to get those fire services and those fire stations back up to full staffing. And so hopefully that won't impact y'all if you do have a fire in that area. The ISO tends to look at things differently, and they don't use a circular pattern, they use road miles. And it's a little bit different to analyze where they're coming from as far as insurance rates. But I do think and want to reiterate that we're committed to making sure our fire services are adequate in Newton County.
Thank you, sir. I just want to briefly say tonight that please keep Officer Kennedy's family in your prayers. You know, he was one that put on that brown uniform. He was the one that wanted to make sure that our community stayed safe. Also, tonight I want to just say a couple of things about the fire situation. This board tonight, I thought, made a great effort to saying that, hey, we do understand the situation that you guys are in, and I think by the raise of their hands, also states that they want to do everything they can to rectify the problem. So I hope that gives some kind of comfort comfort to you guys. The board is not just sitting back doing nothing. As you can see tonight, they came. There was a plan presented tonight, and this board supported it with a 5-0 vote. So that means with a 5-0 vote, that means Commissioner Edwards supported. That means Commissioner Mason supported. That means Commissioner Schultz supported. That means Commissioner Henderson supported and Commissioner Calvin supported. And as the chairman, I support it. So don't think that we're not in support of trying to get relief to you guys, because we are. And we want to make sure we do it as quick as we can. So that's not something that we're going to try to linger and do. So please understand that. Stan made a loud statement a while ago. He said that happened over 3 fire chiefs ago. So that's correct. That's what you said that happened over 3 fire chiefs ago. That's correct. Yeah. 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 So, you know, I don't want Chief Connor to take a whole lot of heat for that because he didn't do that. But we are trying to get that problem situated. I know you want it situated like yesterday, and we want to do it as quick as we can. Also, I want to thank this board tonight for supporting that because it's important to this community that problem get addressed. Also, thank you so much for supporting the purchase of Cousins Middle School as well. There's some things that we need the space. We truly need the space. We are growing. Like Mr. Kerr said, elections over there, elections don't really have space to do what we need them to do. And they're gonna come back on us. You know, when that crowd come over there in November and there's nowhere to park, there's no, you know, you can't get in, you can't get out. Our citizens can't go in there and purchase tags. They can't go purchase, they can't go pay their property taxes because they can't get in the building because the lines are so long. So I greatly appreciate the teamwork that this board has shown tonight. If there's nothing else, we do have a need for executive session tonight. We will not be taking a vote, but it's pending litigation, personnel, and land acquisition. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Seek a motion that we go into executive session. All in favor?